Monday at 6 p.m. We are in the Bonneray Media Center. We're convening a regular meeting of the Cuyahoga Heights Schools Board of Education. It is October 5th, 2022. Mr. Muccio, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Prowse.
Here.
Mrs. Schuker.
Here.
Mr. Suchaki.
Here.
Mrs. Etter.
Here.
Mr. Dobbins.
Here, 5 present, none absent. On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. The board values and encourages public comment on education issues. Anyone having an interest in the actions of the board may participate during the public comments portion of the meeting. Please identify yourself on the board sign-in sheet that Mr. Young has, and a copy of the board meeting agenda is available for review on our district's website. Would you join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda, please?
So moved.
Ms. Schuker moves.
Second.
Mr. Suchaki seconds. Is there any discussion?
Just that I moved public comments up to right after the agenda approval. We would hope that you'd all want to stay and hear Mr. Young's presentation about the school report card, but understand that there's some pressing issues that you want to make us aware of, so we've shuffled the schedule around a little bit to get the public comments up front in the meeting.
Very good. Thank you. So with that background, can we move to a vote then on the approval of this evening's agenda?
Mrs. Schuker.
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki.
Aye.
Ms. Prowse.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. We're moving on to agenda item number 3, comments from the public. And I'm first going to pass it to Mr. Evans for an opening comment.
Just thank everybody for coming tonight, and I certainly look forward to hearing the comments. Just so you know where I'm coming from on this, it's never been the intent to reduce the amount of time that we have people in the building. If you historically look at what we've done and did through COVID, we were like one of the only schools that ran an in-person graduation 2 years ago. My goal has always been to get people back in the buildings. And I think we had a very productive meeting with the PTO Executive Board tonight, and I think we are on a clearer path as to where we're going to go with some of these things. But I do want to thank you for your interest and concern over that, and certainly look forward to working to make sure that we keep our doors open and access to our students the best way we can. So, and Joy, I think you wanted to say something too.
Do I need a microphone? In order for it to be recorded. Okay. I mean, I don't know that you would just, you could take it from me while you're listening. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Podium mic's good. Yeah, podium mic's good enough.
Oh, I didn't know that was a mic.
Yeah, that's,
So that'll all be recorded. That's awesome. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to say a few comments before public comments, just because I didn't want to appear as though I am like arguing with people or saying anything combatively towards people. So I just wanted to, make a few statements. And Mr. Evans is correct. We had a really good meeting prior to this, so I'm happy that we're moving in the right direction. My name is Joy Halchin. I am the principal of Cuyahoga Heights Elementary School. I want to thank you all for allowing me to address you this evening. I just wanted to take a few minutes to express my confusion about what has happened over the last 5 days and share my decision-making process regarding Cuyahoga Heights Elementary School events. I'm not here, as I said, to argue or address specific concerns at this time, but I do feel the need to defend my reputation as a building administrator who has spent 10 years at Cuyahoga Heights Elementary School and is a resident of the village of Cuyahoga Heights. I usually do not speak at board meetings unless I've been asked to give a presentation about staffing, test scores, student demographics, etc. But today I did ask Mr. Evans to allow me to briefly explain the decision-making process and dispel some of the rumors and misconceptions that have led to many misleading accusations and name-calling. To begin, I'd like to address my confusion about the events, and I already spoke with the PTO board. We already talked about this, but I know that they also are going to express some concerns. So Over the past 5 days, I was taken aback by the email I received from the PTO board on Saturday, October 1st. In that email, I was told that the board would speak at tonight's meeting and that they were starting a petition. I was very confused because up until that point, I thought we had worked together to devise revised and replacement activities that were inclusive and safe. I truly believed we had the same goals, to get parents and families back into the school and to participate in their child's education in a safe and manageable manner. I was also very surprised when I was told that a lot of parents were upset about the changes in morning events and parties. On September 7th, I emailed a letter to all parents of Cuyahoga Heights Elementary School students through final forms. That letter explained that although we are now post-COVID protocols, we have to change how we used to do morning events to ensure the safety and security of the students and staff. I explained that I had communicated with various stakeholders over the years, including other administrators from outside districts and our district, a variety of emergency personnel, teachers, staff members, parents, and previous and current PTO groups. These conversations were in progress well before COVID. They were delayed during COVID because we couldn't have the events, and were brought to the forefront again in April and in August of this year. People wanted to get everything back to normal. I took input from all of the groups over the years and the current year about allowing families into the building without compromising security and the educational process. When the letter went out, I received one email from a parent who expressed her thankfulness for considering the student's safety above all else. That was the only feedback I received at that time. I spoke with the PTO board members at meetings and via email about sending out information regarding elementary parties on or about October 1st. I was hoping to get that letter out on Friday, September 30th, but needless to say, the day was extremely busy and I did not finish it until Saturday. When I received the email from PTO, I expressed my surprise and told them that a letter was going out that day. It did not go out for several more hours because it was originally geared towards all the fun activities that we had planned rather than what we were changing. Once I read the PTO email, I spent several hours reworking the letter to make sure it gave as much information as possible. The letter explained why we were not doing some things in a traditional manner, but we were replacing or revising events to ensure that our students and staff were safe. Our message was to party around PBIS rather than holidays, and to make sure that we were being inclusive in our practices. In the 7 to 10 days prior to October 1st, I received 3 emails about parties. 2 of them questioned what was happening. I explained that I was sending out information, but that I would be happy to meet with them in person or over the phone to discuss this. After the letter went out, I heard from several people who supported the decisions, even though they were sad that we are in that time in our world. At that point, I did not hear from anyone else until I learned of the petition. Over the past 5 days, I've been called a lot of names, in person, in text messages, and on social media. I was seriously surprised about all that had transpired over the last 5 days. As far as the decision-making process goes, as stated before, I consulted with a variety of stakeholders. I went through a lot of this with the PTO board in August. They contributed ideas. We shared ideas given to me by others, and we came to an understanding, what I thought was an understanding, that we had a great plan. Their understanding was different, and we talked about that this evening. Some ideas were agreed upon quickly. Others were dismissed due to the capacity to pull them off. And I thought this was the year to implement the changes because we haven't had the events in almost 3 years, and our world has changed a lot since our last school-wide family event in the fall-winter of 2019. Prior to this, slow changes have been rolled out as times changed. For example, we have not done traditional classroom holiday parties in classrooms for at least 6 years. We completely revamped, with the help of PTO members, the way parties are handled. Over the years, I have been questioned on more than one occasion about focusing on holidays like Halloween and Christmas and not including other holidays celebrated by people in the US and around the world. That is what I meant by inclusive. Instead of having 3 parties related to holidays, I decided to have one party per trimester and tie it to our PBIS plan. I believe that my goals align with the goals of the district as a whole and with the people who are here tonight to express their thoughts about the changes. We all want to get people back in the schools. We all want to see that partnership between schools and home. My job is to ensure that we do these things in a responsible manner, keeping in mind that we are a public school with a lot of responsibilities and student needs. Lastly, as to the rumor that I made unilateral decisions for a variety of reasons that I cannot mention in public, I would like to address communication. I have on many occasions been criticized or praised for over-communicating. Usually I'm told that I send too much and so people don't read it. This is the first time that I've been accused of under-communicating. As I reflect on that comment, I realize that there were some misunderstandings and they could have possibly sent something out earlier. When I met with the board at our first meeting together this school year, they provided feedback that people wanted to be able to visit their children's classrooms. That, they felt, was the biggest missing piece of the replacement activities. For that reason, we not only opened the building for Meet the Teachers and Parent Info Night, like we always do, but we also extended the hours of the tailgate party this weekend and are opening the building so families can visit the classrooms. We discussed the difference between holding events during the school day and holding them in the evening or on the weekend. If you know me at all, I'm at school for numerous hours each week. I'm open to meeting with groups or individual people at any time. I would be more than willing, and we have now planned, to have an open session for anyone who wanted to attend, to go through the changes, ask questions, and give ideas. We have scheduled a PTO meeting in 2 weeks. What for David?
2 weeks.
Thank you, the 24th, 3 weeks. On the 24th of October at 6:30 p.m. in the elementary school for anyone who would like to attend. At that meeting, people will be able to ask questions and share ideas about how to move forward, what our new events are missing, and more. I will listen, I will answer questions, I will provide feedback, I will make sound decisions, but I cannot promise to say yes to every idea. There are often compromises that can be made to meet most of the needs. I want to make it clear, I did not cancel parties. I did not cancel events for parents and VIPs to come to see their children at school. I did not cancel holidays. I changed things for many reasons that cannot be explained in a short time. Sometimes it is just not safe or appropriate to divulge reasons for decisions. Sometimes it is. The bottom line is that it would be irresponsible of me and against the code of conduct for educators to agree to anything that I felt would put students and staff in a position that added variables to our school day which increased safety concerns or excluded people. Regardless of the feelings of individuals or my own personal beliefs, it is my job to synthesize all of the information and input shared with me and then make informed and responsible decisions. There will always be, as we discussed tonight, people who disagree with decisions. It's impossible for 370 students, 65 staff members, and 900 parents to all agree. That is just the people in my building. Several others have signed these petitions based on the past and maybe without knowing the current realities. When I speak of safety, it involves a whole lot more than being afraid of a Uvalde situation. It's not black and white. I'm going to leave you with a statement that I've made many times over the course of my 13-year elementary principal career. I would rather apologize 1,000,000 times for taking extra precautions than to have to apologize even one time if something happened that could have possibly been prevented. I hope we can all work together, as we did this evening, to communicate and collaborate on future decisions. I ask that people come to me when they're concerned about something and treat each other with respect that we teach our students. I already talked to the PTO board about putting some PTO meetings on the calendar throughout the year where you would be welcome to attend, instead of only having one at the beginning and one at the end of the year. Thank you for listening. If you have any additional questions or would like further clarification, please reach out to me. Thank
Can I just say, we have 2 people that signed public comments. Did anybody else miss the sign up?
There's the sheet of someone else who like to speak. Right now, Ms. Ciano and Ms. Mandich want to speak?
Carrie, you're up first, if you want to go first. What did, who just, what did you say? That black thing's a mic, Carrie, just so you don't, in case you didn't know.
Oh, this is?
Yeah.
Very good.
All right, good evening. Cuyahoga Heights School Board and Superintendent Evans. My name is Carrie Ciano. I am a proud parent of a 6th grader and a 5th grader at Cuyahoga Heights School District. My mother-in-law, husband, and brother-in-law are all proud Cuyahoga Heights alumni. I am also on the Cuyahoga Heights PTO Board and serve as the treasurer. Also standing with me is Claire Griffith, the PTO president, and Amanda Mormile, the PTO secretary. We are here this evening because we feel we need your help and support to bring back our beloved morning events and in-school celebrations back into Cuyahoga Heights Elementary School. Up until August 22nd of this year, we, the PTO board, were under the impression, based on previously held meetings with Mrs. Houchin, that these events were taking place again and all PTO-sponsored events would resume as they had pre-COVID. Of course, we knew that that may look slightly different, but we were ready to make it work. At that meeting, we were informed that we could no longer have these events due to safety reasons and proposed solutions where we would have to have some sort of event on the weekends. Our parent-teacher organization's purpose is to bridge that gap between school and home, to feel heard and included, to create pockets of opportunity for us to be inside the building as a community, to see our children's faces, light up with excitement that mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, or that special someone is in the building they spend so much time in. They are so proud to show us the work that they have done and all the fun learning that is taking place. The PTO wants to nurture that and make those opportunities available for our families. If we were only allowed to do that on Saturdays or the weekends, we might as well just have a parent organization and host the events anywhere we choose. We are here today because we feel so strongly about these events and want to keep them in our school system. These are priceless moments shared by so many people. We are asking for the chance to come together and find a way to continue these community building events that help cultivate a positive connection between home and school in a safe and inclusive manner. Lastly, we would like to present to you over 300 signatures of parents and community members that also agree and support the PTO in continuing these long-standing events. We would also like to add that Mr. Evans invited us to meet in a prior board meeting along with Mrs. Houchin, and we do believe we walked away from that meeting taking the right steps towards resolving these issues.
That's okay, man.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Mandich, would you like to speak?
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, excuse my voice. I've just lost my voice a little bit. I'm not sick or anything, but I would like to start out just by saying my name is Emma Mandich. I have a daughter in pre-K, and my husband has 3 kids that have gone through the Cuyahoga Heights Elementary School. My stepkids, one already in high school, so we've been, around for a long time. I have watched my husband experience the wonderful events like Donuts for Dads, for example, for many years. And we have photos on our refrigerator from the event every year. Having a daughter in pre-K this year, I can't tell you how excited I was to finally experience those events for myself. And have our Muffins with Moms photo on the fridge. So when I heard of the changes taking place, it definitely left me with a very confused feeling and frankly just wondering why. I have had the chance this year to join the PTO and shadow the PTO board with the anticipation of joining the board next year. I will say the school is very, very lucky to have these moms on the PTO board. They work really hard, and it seems like a lot of the events that the administration is willing to have at this point are going to be after school hours on Saturdays and, just take a lot of time. And these moms have sports, homework, extracurricular activities. So my question, I guess, would be, why are the kids no longer able to have a dress-up Halloween party in school during the day? To me, it just seems like an easier option. This was something that wasn't really explained in the newsletter. I, of course, understand diversity and inclusion, especially as being one of the few non-white members of the community and the school in general. I agree with diversity and inclusion, but I don't think that taking away a kid's Halloween party has anything to do with inclusion, in my opinion. So again, I think that, if it's about expenses, the PTO, the parents are happy to cover that type of thing. I think we can easily make it safe. You send out a newsletter saying no weapon costumes or scary costumes. I think it's something that we could make pretty easy, if we work together and just make it happen. But instead, the yearly Halloween event is now put into the hands of the PTO as a trunk or treat event on a Saturday afternoon, which again, I can probably assure you that many parents are, not going to be able to attend a Saturday afternoon event, especially with, the many things that we have going on as parents on the weekends. And a trick or treat is most likely the next day, so it's a little bit illogical for parents to bring their kids one place one day and one place the next day for Halloween. I think it would just be much easier and take a lot of stress off parents and PTO to have the events like they always were. Have the Halloween party in the school for the kids. It just seems a little bit easier. I would also like to point out a few notes in the newsletter that I think do deserve an explanation. The breakfast with Santa is mentioned, and it states we hope to have an even bigger crowd than last year. Then a few paragraphs down, it states managing to ensure safety in an overcrowded location is not feasible. So if it's not feasible, why are we still able to do it on a Saturday? I guess I'm a little confused about that as well. So on behalf of the parents who agree with me and the PTO that agrees with me, I think that we're just at a point where we want a little bit of honesty and a little bit more of an explanation of why these things are being taken away. And I would also like to ask the board to reconsider taking away these events. And I think that, if we work together, we can come up with a solution to make it happen again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson, would you like to speak?
Excuse me, I'm gonna be a little emotional, I think. Thank you so much, board, for school board, for giving us this opportunity. It is an emotional moment for most of us, especially for me. These are photos of my husband's last Donuts for Dads. In 2018, we didn't know this was gonna be his last one. And it is a very personal, after this happened, the student body made the choice on their own accord to change the name to Donuts to Dudes to be more inclusive. And that was so heartfelt and touching. it meant the world to me at a time where I was so broken. You have no idea. And it meant the world to my children. Their uncles came and proudly stood by them on that day, and it was one of the most beautiful moments I think I've ever seen. Our school and our families coming together, and including a group of kids that have lost their dad. They couldn't bring their dad, and our school did that. They did that for them, and future kids that have that. I think that, like my husband and I grew up in Independence. I'm one of 8 kids. I have 4 children of my own. We moved here from Columbus in 2013, and I could have easily gone to Independence. That's what I knew. That's what I grew up knowing. It was a great, fantastic city. But there were things about Cuyahoga Heights that just drew me here. The people, the family, the love for each other, the hardworking, blue-collar families, just the wonderful camaraderie that I saw was so attractive, and I wanted to be here. These moments are so precious. I can't reiterate it enough. And we don't need less, we need more of them. More family involvement, more family togetherness, more community. Our kids are suffering. COVID wreaked havoc. I started a group for 4th through 6th graders last year because they are an age group that gets missed and are vastly hurting from the effects of COVID and just social media and all of it. And I've seen such a transformation in some of these kids. I know them all by name. They know me. They know me as Mrs. Jackson. They know I'm a safe person. They can talk to me. This is what makes our community great. Moments like this that we get to share with our kid. It's not scary. There's a million other things that we can do to make these events safe in our schools. I have to personally tell you something that was more disturbing. When I was in the school a few days ago, there was a DoorDasher that came to the elementary school. I was there for a meeting with a teacher. A DoorDasher came to the front door and they were buzzed in. And that was more alarming to me than anything that could happen during the school year. That, to no fault of anyone, that's something that could easily go awry very quickly. So there are always going to be dangers and there are always going to be concerns, but these moments are important for our children, they're important for our community, and they're important for our schools. And I'm very disappointed in the tone and in some of the accusations and some of the language. We need to focus. This is for our children first and foremost. All the other stuff, all the other logistics and everything else can get worked out, but we still have to do what's right for our kids. Thank you so much for your time.
And lastly, Ms. Wyman.
Good evening. My name is Hannah Wyman. I have 2 children in the elementary school. It has come to our understanding that there will be changes made within our school regarding PTO events and holiday activities due to the recent decisions made by the administration at CHES. While this news and reasons given by Mrs. Houchin have been disappointing and frustrating, to grasp the solutions she has given and the delivery via the PUP post is very concerning to us as parents. Questions that need to be addressed to Mrs. Houchin. You talk about safety a lot. You talk post-COVID, but also talk about a police chief. Are you worried about health safety or physical safety or emotional safety? You cite safety as a concern but offer no solution for the issue. In fact, you just create other events that pose the same safety issues as before. In the history of morning events, have there been an issue with safety or security? You talk about You talk about inclusive, but then reference VIP opportunities. Why use language that makes these events sound exclusive? 3, you explain that the PTO was informed of admin decisions and did not have input, But how can a community feel their beliefs, values, and expectations are respected and used as a guiding principle when you blatantly state that there was no partnership in your decision-making? This shows a total lack of concern for your stakeholders' input. The school serves the community, and you have reversed this to the community, reacting to and serving the demands of a select few. The notion that we should just tell our kids something and act excited and they will follow suit is insulting. It is honestly concerning that an elementary school principal thinks this way. Our kids are thinkers. They have feelings. They are individuals. We want them to develop into independent thinkers. They are not mindless beings and that just go along with whatever someone is excited about. Cuyahoga Heights has a tradition of providing opportunities for students unlike any other. It has always been a point of pride that a school so small could offer so much for students. We operated with that mantra that it's good for kids. We will figure out a way to make it happen. What is happening at the elementary school is opposite of that. Mrs. Houchin cites safety, but cites no solution to the problem or actual concerns. In fact, she has made changes that have the same problems. A school is nothing without the community, and Mrs. Houchin has essentially cut them out of this process. If there are issues with the morning activities and parties, we should be coming together, finding solutions for our kids. Thank you all for your time and for listening.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment. Did you wanna wrap anything up?
I was gonna, yeah. But if you did,
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
what's that?
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Okay.
I do wanna say something, but I'll say it after.
If you got here late, I thought we had a very productive meeting with the PTO executive board. Brought up a lot of the concerns that you as parents just presented to us. I think we're working towards, have some solutions in place and obviously some more planning to do to make sure some things take place. The intent was never to reduce, eliminate, keep people, it was kind of a restructuring, so I just felt very positive about meeting with the exec board. I thought I think there's some solutions there. I think there's more to come, and we're gonna continue to plan and keep things in place that are important to our families and our students. So at some point in time, that announcement will come from, we'll work that out with the PTO or Ms. Houchin moving forward here. But I think that we did talk about virtually everything that you addressed today in your public comments, and we thank you for that. But I'm sorry that it had to get to this point, that we didn't somehow see this coming a little bit sooner and work through some of those issues. But we have the problem in front of us, and we'll do our best to make it right. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm speaking as a board member, as an educator, as a parent, and a proud aunt of elementary kiddos, because my kids are beyond the stages of, they're all, I don't even know, in high school, college, wherever, they're not here in elementary. I'm just extremely disappointed that we are here. Extremely disappointed. This should have never happened. Never gotten to this point. We are a kids first district. This decision was not kids first. I agree, and I'm not gonna remember who said what, because Grace, you just threw me completely off with, I wasn't ready to get emotional, but, I want you guys to know, the board had nothing to do with this, school board, we had absolutely nothing to do with this. Like, I was blown away by some of the calls I got, blindsided, I knew maybe a week before because my sister-in-law is a parent, okay? But I had no idea that these things were changing so drastically. We could take being thrown under the bus, we're fine. On social media, we get blasted all the time. It is what it is. It's a great job. Somebody, 2 spots open next year, hint, hint, run. But that aside, I'm just giving you my opinion. I am extremely disappointed, Mrs. Houchin, extremely disappointed. This should never have gotten to this point. The information that goes out, it's not child-friendly, it's not parent-friendly. We have to do better. I don't know if that's more collaboration. I don't know if the board needs to get involved in party planning. I would hope not. That's not our job. But this kind of stuff upsets a community, especially a community like Cuyahoga Heights. And then when we want things from parents, like we want involvement, or we want volunteers, or we wanna pass a levy to continue on with these great things, we're gonna struggle. So it's crazy that we're even here. The Halloween costumes, they need to have costumes. Bottom line, you've got middle school kids dressing up, you've got high school kids dressing up. The one parent that said, you know, put a letter out, put, you know, what the parameters are. Who cares if it's a blow-up costume, you know, make it happen, make it happen. This is ridiculous.
We've made that happen, just so you know. We've already made that happen.
Well, good, but when I started this whole thing, I didn't
I
know
know,
that.
like, I'm just telling you.
Step two, the other thing, the security thing really bothers, my notes aren't in order, cause I was just writing them as you guys were talking. The security thing, I think, is one of the main things that bothers me as a board member. To have an administrator putting in writing that there are safety concerns. I know of none. Again, I'm a parent, I'm a board member, I'm an alumni, I don't even know what else I am, but I'm here, okay? And my kids come here every day, so if there are so many safety concerns, we go to sporting events nonstop. We go to, you know, homecoming had record number highs, my daughter was there, like, if safety is such a concern, which it can be, I mean, yes, the craziness with violence, the political unrest, all of that, yes, our world is very violent. However, if something is happening in this school district, I wanna know about it as a board member, and I wanna do something about it as a board member to make it more safe. So, seeing and writing from an administrator that there are safety concerns and talking about, you know, Chief Sturgill, like, again, maybe we need to bring him in and hear what these concerns are. That. Weekends not cool. The weekends are for kids. We need to do something for kids within the time we have them. We do not need to put more on parents. It's enough. And they do deserve a break during the school day. You know, 3 times a year, yippee, that you're talking 20-minute party. I mean, I've done them. By the time you get the kids eating, you know, you're out of there. It's not like they're talking about craziness. I would really like to see just more working together. You know, the things I've heard from staff members are, they're not in favor of these changes either. You know, the memories that people make with muffins with mom, donuts with dad, it might sound silly if you haven't been there. And Mrs. Houchin, I don't know if you were as a parent ever, but it is part of what makes our community. And I would almost say it's almost as important as a preschool program, and that might sound really crazy, but we do things here that promote the community, that promote the bubble, that promote just love and family, and that's part of it, those morning events. And other schools are doing this, for whatever it's worth, they are. I work in Lakewood, our elementary schools are way bigger than that, and we're figuring it out. So if our Lakewood people can do it, if our, you know, Independence, I'm sure, is doing it, you know, we have to do it here. And I'll stop there, because some of it was personal, and I have to stop right there. But I want to thank you guys for coming, and this is ridiculous, and I hope Mrs. Houchin we're never here again with something silly like this. It's not worth it.
I didn't know it was coming.
When you make changes like that, you should know it's coming. It'll be coming.
Mark,
No.
I want to speak.
No.
I'm a community member. I'm signing the
Not
card. I want to speak. You're welcome. Thank you.
Not in favor of it.
Those of you that don't know me, you know me now. I'm Ron Houchin. I'm her husband. What just occurred here is absolutely appalling. Okay? I understand your points. I hear them loud and clear. But she addressed and went to people. She did not make any decisions on her own. You attacked my wife. That is awful. And you should be ashamed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have that right as a board member.
Absolutely.
just to
And
get
so do
my
I have that right as a
Okay.
taxpayer
Okay.
to address this.
Okay.
Okay? All I'm here to say is, She asked Chief Sturgill. They spoke about the situation. She didn't do it on her own. She talked to Mr. Evans. She didn't do it on her own. She advised and asked all of these people, what are your opinions? How do you think we ought to approach this? What do we need to do? Am I not correct, Mr. Evans? Did she not approach you?
Some of them, yeah.
No, she has all the emails.
This is not your forum.
Ron, I'm not gonna
You know.
debate with you.
I'm not debating it. I'm not saying it's
What
my
came-
forum.
what came out in
And
the-
then questioning his response, that's debating.
No, that,
What came out in the,
It's not gonna become an argument.
Agree.
what came out in, we've talked about various things. And my understanding was that she was working with the PTO board. And if her and the PTO board agree on it, I'm in support of it.
they were, and what I'm saying
And
to you
so
is,
in the end, no, let me finish, because in the end, the PTO board wasn't in support of it. And that's why we're here today, because Joy thought something, the PTO board thought something else. We met an hour and a half ago and we talked through some of those things. There's obviously seen from two different perspectives on this. So we're working to work through those things.
understood, but all I want to say is, Mrs. Houchin, on her own, as a 10-year employee of this district, did not make this
No,
decision.
she didn't arbitrarily make decisions.
Correct. She spoke to Sturgill. She spoke to you. She had input, okay? It was not a Napoleon decision, as what was stated on social media. You know, we teach our children to avoid social media, but where did we go? We went to social media and absolutely lambasted the woman, okay? And now I have a board member that's very disappointed in everything she's doing.
Absolutely.
And I didn't say she couldn't be. I didn't say she couldn't be. Okay? You were also very attacking, and that's fine, that's your right, but it's also my right as a taxpayer and somebody that lives on this street to voice my opinion. Okay? Why the lack of support? She's doing the best she can. Okay? Get her some help. Provide some assistance. Okay? I know she stood in an executive session. Asked for help. This woman needs some help. She spends hours, countless hours. Watch your videos. See how long that woman's sitting in that building. Okay? She's working very hard for the education, which is the first goal, and safety of the children. Okay? There were never safety issues in Sandy Hook, Uvalde, or any other place.
So that's what you're afraid of,
But
is a school shooting?
absolutely
During
not.
Muffins with Mom?
We're not afraid of anything until it happens, correct?
I just want to be clear, though, that's what the safety concerns are.
Safety concerns are broad-based. All I'm saying is that, okay? Anything can happen anytime, anywhere. Somebody mentioned the DoorDasher walking in. Do you know that all of these shootings, the people are related or a part of that district? They're not random. Okay?
That's not true.
Okay. Well, then I don't know any of my facts and I apologize, okay? But the majority of them, okay? We're not here to argue it. Those are my statements. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Are there any other, does anyone else want to speak to the board tonight on this matter? If not, then I think we can close the public comments portion of this meeting and we'll move on to the next agenda item. We can take a brief recess. Thank everyone for coming. I appreciate your emails. I've read every one, and I appreciate your input. Thank you. Take a brief recess.
Sounds good.
I would like to actually have conversation with all of you. I'll send you an email, I have a private conversation, I've talked with Luncheon.
Okay,
How you doing?
I'm all right, how are you? You have our emails.
I do have your emails. I have the email convention, so I'm pretty sure I can figure it out for everybody, because going through that thing, I don't have, I don't have Google, like, I can't send you an email.
Oh, you can't?
Through that online thing, because you have to sign in as a Google member, and I don't have Google at any
Are there email addresses in there?
How about if I just, I can give you my phone number.
So the information Cage received from Sam has our address as 4820 East 71st ST Street, Cleveland, Ohio. The Cage record for your physical address contains the information of 4820 say my name is Matthew and Matt.
Well, when I was getting on the, when my passport.
Yeah, I mean, I thought our email addresses were published on the website.
I just saw you have to click on like email, and then you do have to
Oh,
like,
that's that messaging thing.
yeah, but I don't know, I don't think you have to log in, but maybe you have to put your email. I don't know. Don't hurt yourself.
So we had a brief recess, and we are now moving on to agenda item number 4, presentations. Mr. Evans, I'll turn it over to you.
And I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Young to talk about our state report card.
Great.
All right, thank you, Mr. Evans. So back mid-September, the Ohio Department of Education released 607 district report cards, in addition to all the report cards for public schools, community schools, charter schools, etc. I provided the Board of Education with a copy of this presentation prior to this meeting so that you could review, as well as ask any questions if you needed to. Because the public is not here, I will go through a portion of it. Those that are here can see it on the screens. Because I don't want to make any assumptions that people have dove right in to look at the academics of the school district quite as eagerly as I have. So, yeah, it's one of those momentous events for me is to look at state data over the testing. So tonight, do it work there? Okay, I'm going to go over the report card and describe in a little bit of detail what the measurements are, which are called components that we're going to be rated on. Do some comparisons, not just to see how the district did compared to the school buildings within Cuyahoga Heights, but I'm also comparing us to surrounding school districts. That is intentionally done. We're only 11 square miles, and we are a very vulnerable little school district. We always have been, whether people knew it or not. And these are the districts who border us. And if Cuyahoga Heights didn't exist, these are the schools that people would be going to. So you need to see how you are measuring up compared to people who border us. And you'll find that we're all pulling the same rope, and when we pull in the same direction, we do great things. We're also going to look at future changes to the state report card. So let's jump into the components. There are 6 components, 5 of which are on this year's state report card. Achievement. Achievement is how well kids score on their tests. How many questions do they get right? Progress, also called growth. Growth is how does a kid do compared to another kid just like them as a test taker. So if Matt Young is in the 30th percentile, Matt Young will be compared to every other kid in Ohio who's in the 30th percentile. How did Matt achieve compared to a kid in the 30th percentile in another school district? And the farther you achieve above where your group does, the more progress you make as an individual, as a school, and then as a district. It's academic growth, okay? So achievement, how much do you get right? Growth, how much did you grow compared to peers just like you? Okay, one of the most misunderstood metrics of the state report card.
So does it compare year over year or just in that same year?
So every student has a testing profile. You have to have 3 state tests in order to register a profile. Once you start registering a profile, You then start being compared to kids all across Ohio just like you. That starts in value added, which we call value added, starts in 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
Because you don't have 3 data points until starting of your 5th grade year.
Got it.
Okay? So that's when we start to see, actually, this year it's 4th grade because we get the 3rd grade test fall, 3rd grade, spring, and then we get the math 3rd grade. That gives us,
Okay.
the last couple years, we didn't have that because of COVID.
Got it.
All right,
Okay.
so we'll walk that back a little bit. It actually starts, value added starts in 4th grade. And that goes all the way through your state testing career. Gap closing, this is how well you achieve and grow in your subgroups. Your gifted subgroup, your students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, so on and so forth. So there are many different subgroups that you can accumulate points on. You have to have 15 students within a subgroup in order to register a data point. Very difficult at the building level, but easier at the district level. So you may not have 15 students with a disability taking English tests in the middle school because you only have 3 grades. But as a school district, it might be bigger for you, all right, because you're looking not just at middle school, you're looking at high school, middle school, and elementary school. So you have a bigger population, okay? Everybody knows graduation rate. This is a 4-year and a 5-year graduation rate. Keep in mind, when we get to that, there's a difference between the state graduation rate and a federal graduation rate, okay? Some students with disabilities, may go till age 22. The federal government considers those non-grads because they did not graduate with their cohort in 4 or 5 years, even though it's an appropriate placement for that child. However, as a state data point, they would count as state graduates, but they don't count as federal graduates. Okay? Early literacy, this is looking specifically at 3rd grade. All right, you've heard of 3rd grade reading guarantee. It all feeds right into early literacy. We'll talk about that. This is a new measure that will not be fully available or rated until 2025. It's the College Career Workforce and Military Readiness, the CCWMR measure. Okay? They really are called the CCWMR, all right, component. So there is just a little bit of that, but this is not rated. It's not fully going to be ready until 2025. This is a little bit more detailed explanation that the department put out of each component as defined. We have stars. We no longer have letter grades. All right, people say, oh, well, 5 stars is an A. 4 stars is a B. No, it's not quite that simple. 3 stars means that you met the standards. 3 means you met expectation. And then there are ways that you can go above 3 stars and ways that you can drop below 3 stars. 3 is the standard. Okay, 3 is it. So it's like you got bonus. And it's all about evidence. Did we have significant evidence that you exceeded that expectation? Or do you have significant evidence that you did not meet that expectation? Right now, we're only dealing with whole number stars because we are only dealing with components. Next year, they are going to do an overall rating. They're going to take all the components, put them into a formula, and spit out an overall star rating, which will include half stars.
Are all the components, they all be rated equally,
No,
or is
they're not.
it's weighted?
We'll get to that at the end, yep. Two are more important.
Of course, because they have to dump it in a
Yeah,
formula, so it must be
business rules. So, achievement, again, how well do our kids score on the test? How many questions do they get right? Okay, this feeds into something called a performance index. All right, students can achieve 5 different ratings. They can be advanced, they can be accomplished, they can be proficient, they can be basic, or they can be limited. And there are cut scores that are defined. 2 of them are in law. Proficient must be 700, accomplished must be 725. All the others are statistically determined where the cutoff is. So they can vary year to year. All right? The old report card awarded you for indicators met, which was how did you get 80% of your kids to proficient? And this was factored into your overall rating in the past. It's not anymore, it's report only. So it's all on performance index. So it's no longer good enough just to get a 3, just to be proficient. If you are proficient, your performance index will be lower than expected. Okay, because we need students scoring accomplished and advanced. Because you get more points, weighted points for being accomplished and advanced. And if you have students taking a course above their grade level, student in 8th grade taking Algebra 1, you can be Advanced Plus, and you get even more points for that. So it's advantageous to get as many of your students to 4s and 5s as you possibly can. All right, because that feeds into your performance index. This is a comparison of Cuyahoga Heights 2021 to 2022. All right, last year, we knew we had a year, we took state tests, where the previous 2 years were affected by COVID. We knew we had a year, this 92.14, whatever it means, this is just showing you how many we had in each category. All added up to a weighted average of 92.14 out of a possible 120. Okay? Remember, we spent approximately half of our school year on a computer screen. This was roughly, I think our peak was around 104 back in 2019. So we had a significant drop in performance as a result of COVID. We weren't bad, right? But we weren't where we were used to being. This past year, you can see our performance index is 100.897, almost to 101. So we've increased by almost 9 performance index points. It's significant. It's a significant jump in the 1 year. Because we knew we had a lot of gaps to close as a result of learning through a computer screen, as a result of various modalities, as a result of missing school because of attendance for illness. So how did we do? 5 stars across the board. District, high school, middle school, elementary school. How did we compare to the districts who border us? 607 school districts, all 607 registered a performance index. Our performance index ranks 42 out of 607 schools in Ohio. 42 out of 607. The next closest is Independence at 52. Of the ones that border us, Garfield Heights is at 603. Not picking on them at all. They just border us, and that's the lowest number, 603 out of 607. So you can see how we compare to school districts who border us. Okay? These are the performance indicators. This is letting you know the percentage of students who at least got a 3, which is proficient, a passing score. We did very well. Very well. Progress. So, again, progress is comparing kid to kid. Kid in the 30th percentile to a kid in the 30th percentile. Kid in the 30th percentile is not compared to a kid in the 90th percentile. Kids who are gifted, who usually scored in the 99th percentile, are only compared to kids in the 99th percentile. So how did a Cuyahoga Heights kid in the 99th percentile do compared to a kid in Solon in the 99th percentile, in Lakewood in the 99th percentile, in Independence, Garfield, Maple Heights, Bedford? Is that like Liberty? It's like in Aurora or something. That's like a commercial or something there. But this is how well did our kids score compared to other kids? Did they outpace their learning? Did their learning outpace kids in other school districts? Or did they fall behind pace of kids in other school districts? Or were they right on the average? Okay? Very hard to achieve and grow. You'll notice school districts who don't achieve very well, but their academic growth is through the roof. Well, because lower achieving school districts are typically talking about kids averaging the 10th percentile, 15th percentile, 20th percentile. You make it to the 30th percentile, it's significant. That is a significant advancement. Okay? But when you're 90th percentile, you're trying to move to the 92nd percentile. All right? It's all scaled, but it's all apples to apples there. This is a very difficult component to explain. Because there are 2 different data points that feed into it. One is called the gain index and one's called the effect size. I'm not going to necessarily go into the minutia of that. It's not easy to explain. But the growth index simply is a measure of statistical certainty. How certain are we that the data, we have the confidence in the data. How confident are we that the data is telling us what we think it's telling us? And over time, as we get more data points, we're able to get more confidence in the data. As we collect more tests on the kids, we notice the certainty goes up and the uncertainty goes down. Effect size was how significant was your growth overall? How impactful was it? How strong of a measure is it when you're looking at 2 different populations? These are our raw numbers. You can see overall, we had a gain index of 11.49. To get a 3, you just have to be between -2 and +2. Okay, so we're at 11.49 overall. So you can probably guess, not only did we probably move from 3 stars to 4 stars because we were above +2, we probably had a significant effect size, because that's an astronomical number. This is how we did in the individual subgroups and some content areas. Okay, so you see here, most of ours are 5 stars. We do have a couple that are 3 stars. For example, overall, our students with disabilities met academic growth, which means our kids stayed on pace with kids just like them. They didn't move ahead, they didn't fall back, they stayed on pace. Which means if they were a grade level ahead, they stayed a grade level ahead. But it also meant if they were a grade level behind, they stayed a grade level behind. Or if they were right on grade level, they stayed right on grade level. That's what that means. But when you're at 5 stars, what that means is your gifted kids overall outpaced gifted kids significantly in other school districts. Okay? Or, you know, you go down here to mathematics, students with disabilities, not applicable. Why? You probably didn't have enough kids to register, potentially. Or it wasn't measured. I'm trying to look at a really good one here. It's a really good one. Mathematics overall is 12. I mean, that's just telling you, any given math kid here is outpacing any other given math kid anywhere else. So,
Can I ask you on that, so the social studies, is that because, like, I went back to the scores, we did really, really well, so to show growth?
so that means we had a lot of kids probably score 3s, but we had a lot of kids who scored 3s who should have scored 4s and 5s
Okay,
and did not.
okay.
So if a kid should have, because there's something called a projection. So anybody who's done any type of running knows that you can run a bunch of 5Ks and 10Ks and you can go to a book and based on those times, it projects, hey, if you ran a marathon, you will project to this time. So there's all these projections. And then you actually have to go out and run a marathon and see how you do. All right, and then you look at your projection versus what you actually did to say, oh, that projection was accurate or it wasn't accurate. Well, we had a lot of kids who were projected to score 4s and 5s, but they probably scored 4s and 3s, okay? So that's all that means right there, all right? So yeah, you can have a 95% passage rate, but it just means you got to 700. It doesn't mean you got to 725 or above necessarily. So that's why it's not just important anymore to just get to 700, which you were rewarded for that in the past. You're no longer rewarded for that. Okay, it's about how many 3s, 4s, and 5s do you get. And the more 5s you get, the better. The more 4s you get than 3s, the better you get. So it's all about performance. And our teachers know this. Like it's game on every day in our classrooms. This is just a color chart. This is what you would see on the actual state report card site. I'm colorblind, so I have a really tough time with this one. I mean, I can see that there's different shades. I know this is like a bluish something, and that's probably gray, but I don't know if these are greens or yellows. So I'm going to leave it to the people in the room who can say, okay, there's an awful lot of students made more progress than expected, significant evidence, and that's a real positive. It's a very big positive, because we all got 5 stars. Okay? Now, remember I told you, you can have a school district not achieve very well, but and not rank well in achievement, but they can rank significantly in growth. Like good job to Cleveland Metro. Okay? They're ranked 12th in the state in growth. So their kids didn't necessarily pass the test, but where they moved their kids in a year was really significant. Good for them. All right, good for them. But look at us. I told you it's really hard to achieve and grow. Really hard. So not only do we pass tests, we pass tests with higher scores than kids in other school districts when comparing apples to apples. Remember Independence was right behind us at 52? And this is not an knock on Independence. I get the challenge. But this is a commitment. You have to commit to academic achievement and growth. And you can see, we understand it, we commit to it. 437.
Can I add to that too? So in light of this, Independence, they were full in right from the get-go, right?
Correct.
So we did this, and our kids were not even physically.
No, this is this past year. So the past year, last year we were in session.
Right.
But what we were still dealing with was a lot higher than absenteeism, because kids were still getting significantly sick.
Right.
Or kids that just had a sniffle, we said, just stay home. Now that plays out. I'm gonna show you how that played out a little bit. We get punished for that a little bit by saying, you're sick, just stay home, don't bring a doctor's note. Well, now kids get counted as chronically absent, so our absenteeism goes up. And that has an effect. So it's amazing. Gap closing, we're talking about subgroups. You can see all the subgroups. I put a 15 there because you need 15 students in a subgroup to register a data point. For example, we do not register our Asian or Pacific calendar, we do not have a large enough population to register this. Independence does.
Does that have
Probably
to be
Fairlawn
per
does.
grade?
Oh, this is our district, so this is on all tests.
Okay.
Now, if it's in the elementary school, you're only looking at the tests they give at the elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
which drops your number down even more, which is why you may not see the same correlation between high school, middle school, elementary school. Because elementary only gives English test in third grade, math test in third grade, English, math in fourth, English, math, and science in fifth grade. Right, so those are their tests. Over here in, middle school, it's 6 through 8 with the science test in 8th grade. High school, you're talking about 6 end of course tests, so
Yeah.
it's just different. But these are the subgroups. We tend to register at the district level students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged. We tend to register black, non-Hispanic, white, non-Hispanic, and then all students. And in any given year, like for example, English learner, we had 4 English learners last year. We'll never register unless we have a significant change in our population.
How do they classify economically disadvantaged?
Free and reduced lunch.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Students on free and reduced lunch, which we know roughly hovers between 22 and 25% of our students.
Okay.
Do we have a good, because I know one of our challenges is to get parents to fill out the paperwork to qualify for them. Do we do a good job of that? Like, do most
We're
families?
Yeah.
Pam sent me a list out of people that had been previously signed up. There was probably a list of about 8 people, and I reached out to them individually to say, hey, because we had been on, when lunch was free all last year, so sometimes people didn't understand the significance of having to redo that. So Pam told me that she has gotten a number of them in, but there are still some that don't fill it out. I mean, we have no way of knowing, but
By choice.
all we can do is follow up with the ones that we have previously filled out and just encourage them to continue to do so if they qualify, so.
So will we not have that economically disadvantaged data for last year because
We do.
even though lunches were free, so we just kind of know?
They carried the number
Got it.
over. They
Got it,
didn't
okay.
take anybody off, so.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. These are all the data points that feed into this particular component. It's a lot. Lot of numbers, a lot of calculations. This is how we do just pictorially. You can see with respect to English and math, performance, again, performance index is how well are kids scoring on a test. How many questions are they getting right? You can see we exceeded now those dots represent benchmarks set by Ohio and approved by the federal government as part of the Every Student Succeeds Act. These little dots every year shift a little bit farther to the right. These are not percentages, these are performance index. Remember, max score is 120, so this is not 98.6%, it's 98.6 out of 120. Okay, these numbers, every year, it's a little bit more rigorous because Ohio is committed to raising achievement of all kids in math and language arts every year, incrementally, and it's been approved by the federal government. And you receive state designations based on how well you are meeting your yearly indicators. So you can see every single subgroup we registered on this chart, we exceeded the state and federally approved benchmark. This is growth index. So now we're talking about how well do kids compare to other kids just like them. So you scored this on the test. How did I compare to the kid just like you? We hit of the 6 that registered total, we hit 5 of the 6. Okay, so we can see we fell just a bit below that positive 2 line. Negative 2 is not even in the picture. All right, some schools would have negative 2 or lower. We just missed the positive 2 there with our white non-Hispanic students overall. Okay. This is graduation rate with our subgroups. I think we only had 3 that registered. Chronic absenteeism, I mentioned that, 18%. We've been hovering around 4%. This was a significant increase. Now, we still met the state benchmark, but it's like a 600% increase for us in the chronic absenteeism.
I take issue with this a little bit too, because.
Exactly, that's what I was talking about.
For years, prior to COVID, we told students that if you don't feel well, that's different than being sick. If you don't feel well, come to school, we'll get you through it. When COVID came, we said, if you don't feel well, stay home, don't come to school. So we're barely out of COVID for a year, and we're still in that mode of, we haven't gone back and said, because we're not, you know, you hear the commercials, you hear the numbers about number of apps. That's gonna take a long time to turn that philosophy, because it was a long time just to get it the other way, to say, you know, if you're sick, stay home. But sometimes we don't feel good, and we show up and we still get some things done. And that was kind of the mindset for many, many, many years, but then COVID kind of flopped that around, and it'll be hard pressed.
Yeah, if we have doctor's notes, then we're fine. Now we just start asking for a doctor's note. I don't feel well, okay, go to the doctor now. Okay, that's, and we're not gonna be perfect, and we'll still have kids in chronic absenteeism, but expect that number to go down next year by quite a bit. You'll see with respect to gifted, we didn't meet the standard for the performance index, which is a really positive thing. It's one of the things that we've been working on subconsciously for a couple years now. So if you got 3 stars, it meant that you had greater than or equal to 30%, but not less than 45% of the possible points. There's 75 possible points if you hit all those boxes. Now, some don't have enough kids to register all those boxes, so maybe their scores are out of 70, so now the percentage is out of 70. Highest district in Ohio was Put-in Bay. Well, Put-in Bay is 31 kids in their entire school district.
36, I think.
Oh, 36.
Oh,
I'm
man.
sorry. 36 kids in their
Don't
entire
sell them
district.
short.
They only registered one of those categories, and they got 5 out of 5, so they met 100%. All right, so they're top in the state. All right, in growth, gap closing. We had a number in every single category. We got 5 stars as a district, 5 for each building, and we are ranked 3rd in Ohio.
Wow.
Out of 607 schools who registered performance index.
For that one, for that category.
For that category. So.
Gap closing.
If you're keeping tabs on things that have to do with state tests specifically, we've absolutely just crushed it. And when I look at our metrics overall, we rank, when you consider at least these first 3, we're 34th in the state of Ohio overall. When you look at achievement, progress, and gap closing, we're 34th in the state because we have 5 stars in all categories, and we're only 34 schools who have 5 stars in those 3 categories. Okay, graduation. There's a 4-year graduation rate for the class of 2021. This is not the class of 2022. So it always lags a year. So the 4-year graduation rate was for the class of 2021, and the 5-year graduation rate is the class of 2020. Okay? The 4-year counts 60% of the overall, 5-year counts 40%. Again, percentages of how many, what's the percentage you got across the finish line. You needed 96.5 to earn 5 stars. This is obviously a high school measure. The district reflects the high school. The district got 4 stars, the high school got 5 stars. Okay? Now, I want to give you a little, I'll give you some context here.
We're talking about graduation?
First of all, yes, graduation rate. We have a student who I've appealed the data for, who moved out of Columbus and got coded to Cuyahoga Heights 4 years ago. But they really went to Cuyahoga Falls and dropped out. But because Columbus coded them as Cuyahoga Heights, they count as our non-grad. I have appealed that with the Ohio Department of Education last year. They told me the only way that that student can come off is if Cuyahoga Falls accepts that student as a non-graduate for their
Yeah, right.
Now, that's not happening. It's not happening. So I'm going to appeal it again because that student will show up in the 5-year graduation rate. The other thing is, how can your district get 4 stars and but your high school get 5? There's something called where kids count. You can have a student who counts for the district, but they're outplaced to another facility. So they don't count against the high school as a non-grad. They may count against the district as a non-grad. So you can have some discrepancies based on where kids count. It can be applied to the district because your district is still paying for that child's education and still a resident, even though they're not at that placement. So they're not going to penalize the building. They try to sift through. So here's where we rank. We rank, where are we?
Not in there, yeah.
Oh, come on,
I noticed that.
hold on. We were. We're like 200. Why did I leave this out? We should be right here. It's because of the Bedford. I forgot to paste us into there. I was trying to put us in order. We rank, I think we're 244. I'll have to double check that. I forgot to put us in there because I, again, went through and compared and then put things in order. But we would likely be in the top 100 without that one student that's not ours. So, it's okay. 4 and 5 stars, we're gonna live with it. It'll all shake out in the end. Considering last year, I believe we had near 100% graduation rate last year. Early literacy. So this has 3 components. How many students are proficient in 3rd grade reading? So they have to hit a score. So that weights 40%. Promotion to 4th grade, how many kids have we promoted to 4th grade? That weights 35%. And then how many kids who were placed on a reading improvement and monitoring plan called a RIMP moved off of a reading and improvement monitoring plan from one year to the next? Okay. So that all plays out this way. We had 78.2% of our students proficient in 3rd grade reading. They all got promoted to 4th grade. We don't hold anybody back. But only 36.1% of our kids, once on a RIMP, moved off of a RIMP. For a total of 75.3%. Again, it's percentage range. The district is reflective of the elementary in this particular rating. We're at 3 stars, we meet standards. Okay? So, where do we rank? We're 202 out of the districts that border us. So we're still in the top 3rd in the state of Ohio. So you look at that, you're like, oh, 3 stars. Well, most people got 2 and 1 star. Okay? So yeah, we've got some work to do there as we shift to the science of reading and we start looking more at our literacy practices, and we have teams and we have some pilots going on in elementary school. We are all hands on deck to improve literacy because I think we know what we have to do. So yeah, this particular metric, the CCWMR, 14 separate measures are going to feed into this. All right, so you're looking at students who are taking your college placement tests and are scoring remediation free, which is our benchmark set by higher education. You're looking at students who go to the military, students who go to Career Center earning industry recognized credentials, how students are doing on your AP tests, how many students are in pre-apprentice programs. So a lot of these we don't have control over. You can see quite a few. These 3 down here are associated with your Career Center. Okay, we don't offer international baccalaureate. We offer advanced placement. So there's a lot of metrics that feed into this. Context is really important. Again, this isn't going to be rated for another 3 years. Number of students in the 4-year graduation cohort, again, we're talking about the class of 2021, who completed a pathway and prepared for a college or career success. 58.7% of our students. Okay. We know that approximately 75% of our students go to college, all right, whereas 25% enter the workforce or are undecided what they're doing based on our 8-year graduation cohort. It's hard to know what that number means without context, without going through and being able to compare it to other school districts, and I didn't take the time to do that. It's a not rated measurement right now, so I need to see what else is going to be feeding into this. What am I looking at here? So these are some of your remediation-free scores. For example, this SAT remediation-free score, we tend to hover around 49%, 50%, which when you look at our 8-year trend, locally only Solon and Brecksville are higher than that. Independence is slightly below that number, as are all the bordering school districts. So it's tough to look at these without having context, and these are just being developed, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on them. So these are just, you're looking at the percentage.
Again, if you don't want to go there, but
No, what?
ACT, why is the remediation-free score so much lower than the SAT? Why is such a big discrepancy?
Only 19% of the kids in the graduating class earned a remediation-free score in the class of 2021.
Oh, okay, so it's actually that, okay.
Yeah, remember, this was a COVID year, so we offered this on campus. Students could come here on a Saturday in April and take the test. We paid for them to take it, but only 42.9% of our kids took advantage of that. Right, it was a COVID year. Because you're talking about not last school year, but the school year before that. And keep in mind, this is when they were juniors. All right, that makes it even worse. This would have been the year that COVID broke out. That's why that participation rate's so low. That was the spring of 2020, now that I think about it. Because they take them off of their junior year. So those kids, if they didn't take the test before COVID shut down, they didn't take the ACT.
What does it mean that it's, remediation free? Does that mean they don't?
There's a score, like you have to score an 18 in English, you got to score a 20 in mathematics. And I'm not sure that I'm getting those numbers right, but higher education defines those.
Got it, okay.
All right, not the department.
Means you don't need, like when you get to college, you don't need remediation.
Yeah, right, it means that you will likely not have to take some type of.
It's a predictor of
intervention.
success, it's a predictor of success, that if you score 18 on ELA, that you won't have to, you can be, you would, when you take a college entrance exam, that you're probably gonna have a greater chance of not having to take a remedial course.
Got it, okay.
So moving on, overall ratings are going to be published in the 22-23 for that school year. So next fall, we will get this. They may release some preliminary, well, if we were to have released it for this past report card, but this is going to be standard starting with the next report card. There will be half stars, as I mentioned. Components are assigned points and they're weighted. It gets, again, a lot of this is defined in Ohio Revised Code. The achievement and progress must be equal. But graduation, early literacy, and gap closing must be equal. But they also must be half of the value of achievement. Now this is bad math, but what that means is that achievement was 50%, then progress has to be 50%, and then the other three have to be half of achievement, which would be 25%. That's 175%, so that math doesn't work, but I'm just trying to be simple with my numbers here. This is actually how it plays out. This is your achievement and progress. And then these two have to be equal, and then these three have to be half of what achievement is. So that's why you see 28, 28, 14, 14. We would have gotten 5 stars.
Why don't we do a 5.5 star?
No, we would have been 5.5. We would have been, I believe we would have been 5 stars when I plug it into the calculations. There are some report-only measures that are going to be coming, like PBIS, where the school or district has implemented the PBIS framework. There's going to be information on FAFSA, the number and percentage of high school seniors each year who complete the FAFSA form. And all of these things, sorry, I'm not going to read through them all, but these are metrics that various organizations have asked to be included on the report card because it tells a better story. Sometimes you may hear, well, a student who went through middle school at Cuyahoga Heights then scores better on high school tests at Cuyahoga Heights, but a student who went through education at a different school district until 8th grade that then tries to step into high school at Cuyahoga Heights may not score as well compared to the kids who went through our program before. Those are the kind of other metrics they want to put on here, and there's a lot of them, and that's why I provided it in the presentation for you to read through. A lot of other data that really tries to round out and make more of the quality profile that a lot of school districts have done independently to put it out there for public. So in closing, this is a great presentation to do because there are a lot of celebrations. And nobody made excuses going into COVID and coming out of COVID. People rolled up their sleeves and they said, we have to do this. And it's a full effort by staff. And it doesn't matter if you're a teacher in a classroom or you're disinfecting the hallways. It doesn't matter if you were an administrative board member, teacher, custodian, bus driver, parent, student, supporting community member. This is what happens when we all pull the rope in the same direction. Okay? And there's a lot to celebrate here. We have a lot of work to do. All right? Everybody thinks going 10-0 is easy, right? It's actually easier to go 0-10 than it is to go 10-0. It's easier to lose every game than it is to win every game. This is not a game. These are kids' academics. But But it's easier to not score well on a state report card than it is to score well. That's a commitment. That's a commitment, again, by staff, by students, by community. And there's a lot to celebrate here. We'll continue to work on our early literacy. We'll continue to work on our subgroups to make sure that all students, when I say all students, it has to be all right? All students have the access. All right, we're not all created equal, but we should all have equal access. And that's what we're trying to ensure, that the kid who struggles the most is receiving the same resources as the kid who struggles the least, and everybody in between. So we've got growth opportunities, and we'll continue to work to get better. There's always another spreadsheet to create. There's always a little deeper dive to go into, and that's what I'm working on now with the staff. What questions do you have?
I've got a comment and a question. Firstly, congratulations to you and the entire team for making this happen. This reflects a lot of hard work.
Look, I had the easy part. I just had to analyze
Okay.
this. It's
Well-
the people that go out every day that have to roll up their sleeves and teach the kids, and it's the parents and the families that are waiting for the kids to get home to help, we take this seriously. Like, this is what happens when a community takes it seriously. This is, oh, we're just not taking, no, we do have to. This is our reputation. This is your home value. You know, that's what all this is, whether like it or not. Like, it all feeds into the same machine here. And this is something to be proud of. This is it. And you've always said you wanted an update on the return of your investment. And the board has invested in some of the other things, whether it was an MTSS coordinator or an additional 2 teachers in the elementary school to help reduce, or it's a textbook adoption, or professional development, working with Mr. Muccio to make sure our grant funding is trying to reduce all that. This is your return on investment, and at least for last year, we got an amazing return. And we're back to near where we were pre-COVID, but in a lot of ways, we're better. We're better. So, all right, I'm sorry, you were speaking.
No, that's fine. Kudos to you and the entire team.
Thank you.
My question is, do any of the quote-unquote private schools, the charters and what I'd call parochial schools, are any of them subject to this type of oversight or testing?
You're not gonna see a single parochial school.
And how about a so-called charter school, the constellations of the world?
Yeah, your community schools.
The community schools,
Yeah,
okay, I'm
charter schools.
wrong
Anybody that receives
terminology.
public dollars is going to
good.
have, maybe it's just a school.
Which is ironic, because the parochials get more per student than we do.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know, like I was looking at the school reports, something like, there was an and this is not knocking any, there's like an Akron Success Academy. They scored lower than any school in Akron Public. And they have funding to pull the best of the best, and they did the worst of the worst. I mean, it's a shame for those kids, because it's a child's education, it's at stake here. And I'm not degrading teachers for their efforts or kids. I'm just saying that public education is important. And it's one of the, it's one of the fabrics that holds society together. And it's a fabric that holds this little tiny community together that would be in those other surrounding communities without everybody pulling the rope in the same direction.
And that's why I asked, is I wanted to understand what the universe of the population is of schools that we're talking about. So of that 600 and some, we're including.
That's just districts, so
That's
those are
districts.
districts.
Yeah.
Not till you get to the building level where you see
Okay,
those,
all right.
what you're talking about.
Then it jumps to 870 some
Okay.
numbers.
Thank you, great presentation.
All right.
Great
Anybody
results.
else?
Thank you very
guys for
much.
your
Thank you.
support.
Is this information gonna get out in some condensed form to our,
So it's, I
parents and-
know our PR personnel, they put out a quarterly newsletter from Tom's office. That's going to be part of it.
okay, good.
We want to brag a little bit about that, and it's all accessible, but it's not always,
Well, there's a lot to it, and
there's
I,
a lot.
and it really would be, beneficial that it's presented in a, user-friendly way, and that people understand our successes and the growth that we've had in the difficult years that we've proceeding up to this point. So I would like to see it, put out in some form that, celebrates these accomplishments and.
I would expect that in the next quarterly newsletter, because I wrote up an article and explained all the data to our PR folks, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to put it into a concise, like, readable
It
article.
is, yeah.
Especially when they continue to change it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody remembered like, they're gonna remember the report card with the ABC, whatever, and now we've got.
Excellent distinction,
Yeah,
remember from those days.
yeah, and, you know, different language that they had before, and now we have stars,
Mhm.
you know,
Yep,
so. And people should understand, like, it's out of 5 stars and not out of 10 or
Right,
something, you
right.
know?
and 3 stars means you passed,
Yeah, exactly,
5 stars means you're the best.
Are scores going home to parents soon?
We'll talk about that, I've had that conversation,
Okay.
yeah. Talk about that soon.
Thank
Yes,
you.
they
Thank-
should have been home
It's okay,
3
I
days
just,
ago.
I,
They should have
you
been.
mean the scores that the
the
kids
individual
took?
Kids.
scores,
Yeah,
kids'
individual
scores, there's a
scores.
parent report that gets printed out.
What, isn't that something from the state that has to?
No, it came to,
State
It's
sends them to
delivered
us.
to the schools.
delivered to the school, delivered to me, I deliver it to the offices, and then from the offices it goes home.
So it's coming, that's good.
I think elementary's out, I think that's already been delivered quite a while ago.
Interesting.
So, we just gotta get the middle school and the high school home,
Mm-hmm.
get them there. I'll make sure of it. Okay.
Very good. Great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you
guys
so
for your
much.
attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 5, Treasurer's Business, Mr. Muccio.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbins. Just a couple items tonight for approval. 5A, motion to approve the minutes of the September 21st, 2022 regular meeting as found in attachment T1. And item 6A, motion to approve new vendors to the school district for W9s attached as found in attachment T2. Ask for those motions for approval tonight.
So may I have a motion to approve the treasurer's consent agenda items, please?
So moved.
Ms. Schukert moves.
Second.
I'll second. I'll jump in this time. Any comments or?
Just to look at our new vendors, we just have 3. If we were to click on our lead sheet and see the 3 there. First one is Creation Gardens. That's $2,500 for the new vendor estimated amount. And this would be produce for the cafeteria lunches. Next new vendor, We Video Incorporated. This is approximately $300 for the whole year. It's multimedia software for the class video editing. And number 3 is the Fairfield County ESC Educational Service Center, approximately $2,000, the estimated amount for the year. This is for virtual mentor training for staff that we have.
Very good. If there's no further discussion, we can move to a vote then, please.
Mrs. Schukert.
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye.
Ms. Prowse.
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Item number 6, Mr. Muccio.
Yep, just a couple comments tonight. 8A, discussion, November 2022 5-year forecast. This, again, is just our timeline to present that we were talking about from the last meeting, so just kind of keep it going. So the forecast would be presented at the November 2nd, 2022 work session board meeting that we would have. And November 16th would be the regular board meeting that we would approve the 5-year forecast that we have. So that looks good. Item 8B, final expenditure reports, the FERs. So all fiscal '22 final expenditure reports have been submitted. They were done Monday, September 22nd, or excuse me, September 26th, to the Ohio Department of Education before their due date, which was Friday, September 30th. So that entails our fiscal '22 consolidated, which includes our Title I, Title IIA, Title IV, and the expanding opportunities for each child. Our fiscal '22 ESSER 2, we already spent all of our ESSER 1. Our fiscal '22 ARP ESSER 3, that's American Rescue Plan. Our fiscal '22 American Rescue Plan ARP IDEA, special education, as well as the early childhood special education grants. And our fiscal '22 school bus purchase program, which we didn't buy any buses, and we just got all 4 the past couple days. I believe some board members saw the new buses that we have out front, so they came. So that worked out great for us. And I just have some explanations on what the FERs, the final expenditures, are. So at the end of each grant period, grantees are required to submit a final expenditure report. The FER is a form submitted by the grantee to demonstrate how grant funds were expended during the grant's period of availability. So typically it's 7/1 to 6/30, and if you encumber it by our fiscal year end 6/30, you can spend it up until 9/30/2022 for this past year. Number 3, the FER is due September 30th of each year unless stated otherwise in the grant application. Some of our ESSER grants extend past the typical 1 year, so So that's why it was kind of interesting to see how the government of Ohio was going to account, federal government as well as Ohio was going to account for these ESSER funds, but it's on a year-by-year rolling basis. Number 4, expenses are reported by object and amounts, object code that we have, and amounts must coincide with the entity's financial records. So anything that we enter into the software for ODE when they approve our grants, we have to make sure in turn we're spending them for those purposes as they're coded. So purchase services, supplies, materials, capital outlay, whatever object code it is, it's all tracked by object code that we have. Number 5, project cash request, PCRs. It's a form submitted by the grantee to request grant funds for allowable expenses. The reported expenditure amounts are linked to the most current approved budget. So I go in periodically and do PCRs, so once we spend our grant funds, I go in and request the money back for that expenditure that we have. Number 6, any remaining payments due to grantees will automatically be generated once the FER is approved. So ODE is working on approving our FERs at the moment. We do have carryover funds for some of our grants, and we'll track those when they hop over to the new fiscal year. And once this is all done, and I have my large spreadsheet, one of the large spreadsheets, we'll go through this and just talk about our grants that we have, close out fiscal 22 and fiscal 23. Number 7, any unused funds will be reported on the FER and permitted move forward to the next fiscal year, which we did. And number 8, the FER form is submitted electronically via the Comprehensive Continuous Improvement Plan, CCIP, that we have. And 8C for discussion. This is for the Ohio K-12 School Safety Grant from Governor DeWine. So we have submitted both grant applications for 2021 and 2022, and it's $100,000 per school building. So we have 300,000. And we have good news. I'm going to send out the board an email, but the last attachment there just came about an hour before the board meeting. Our 2021, which we submitted earlier, got approved. So we have $150,000 approved for the K-12 school safety grant. So $50,000 per building. So that one's done, and we'll see how the 2022 goes. From what I heard, this one, the 2021 was not open to parochial schools, just K-12. So I think the 2022 application is going to be open to more applicants. Therefore, maybe got money the first round, may not save the second round. So from what I've been told, it's not to anticipate anything for 2022, but you never know how it's going to go. So we're hopeful. But we have $150,000 coming that we didn't have before. So this is a great use of funds that we're going to look at the list that we have and hit the ground running. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, thank you for that update. And just to kind of tie it back to Mr. Young's presentation, we authorize the expenditure of a lot of dollars, and it's nice to be able to see the dollars that you and your team are able to generate and help us do this great job of education, and to see them applied to such great use, which is what Mr. Young and Mr. Evans and the rest of the team are doing. So it's nice to see this kind of full circle presentation. Moving on to agenda item number 9, Mr. Evans.
9A, motion to accept the resignation of Teresa Hurst as a Cuyahoga Heights school bus driver effective October 5th, 2022. Item B, motion to accept the resignation of Kara Kovich as elementary secretary effective January 9th, 2023. Is that date correct?
January 9th, 2023.
First day back from there.
Okay, yes, it is. I'm sorry. I just want to check that. Thank you. 10A, motion to approve the agreement with the Educational Service Center, ESC of Lorraine County for literacy professional development service during the 22-23 school year. B, motion to approve an agreement with Agile Sports Technologies for huddle services and camera for all sports for the 22-23 school year at a cost of $10,100. C, motion to approve the geotechnical proposal with GPD Geotechnical Services Incorporated for the attached estimate to perform the hillside study phase 2 at the Cuyahoga Heights schools at a cost of $31,400. D, motion to approve an MOU between Cleveland State University College of Education and Public Affairs, Cleveland State University's College of Health, and Cuyahoga Heights School District partnership to support license preparation for pre-K through 12 student teaching placement. And E, motion to approve the attached agreement with Rewire LLC to provide health and wellness services for 22-23 at a cost of $4,000. 11, I ask for those items to be approved.
Great, thank you. So may I have a motion to approve the superintendent's consent agenda items?
So moved.
Mr. Suchaki moves.
Second.
Ms. Etter seconds. Discussion, please.
just like to thank Teresa and Kara for their service to the district. Wish them the best of luck as they moved on. ESC's Literacy Consulting through Lorraine County, as we've talked about numerous times. Each of the ESC kind of specializes in some different things. Lorraine County has a really strong literacy consulting service that we're gonna work with. Agile Sports, that's our huddle technology that, remember during COVID, you could view some of the games via the huddle cameras. These are all the team sports use huddle as their cameras, boys and girls basketball, football, I think boys and girls soccer, anything along those lines are all huddle programs. Geotechnical, GPD services, what we found out from the first study is that we need some additional research done on the hillside. I will tell you that the water company was out today to do some water test samples in our sewer and our room, so that was kind of a pleasant surprise. I quite honestly didn't expect them. They said they got an email from me. I don't remember sending them an email, but somebody sent them over, so we put them to work anyhow. But once that geotechnical service is done, we'll have them present at a work session, because this is pretty just looking over the first test, they did a lot of testing just to know that they need to do some more testing to see what's actually causing it, and that's the root. We want to know where's that water coming from, and what is it doing to the building and the hillside out back. So MOU with Cuban State, that's for teacher ed preparation. With them and Rewire LLC, we talked about a wellness program. This is the beginning of that. That's a survey that will be sent out to the entire staff, that we'll get those results back from, and then we'll be able to kind of tailor-make a staff wellness program for each individual staff member that's interested in doing it. So you can focus around whatever the staff member wants it to. It can be physically related, it can be nutrition related, it can be social emotional related, or a combination of those things based on what the survey results tell them. So we look forward to getting some things in place, and actually this will help us save a little bit of money on healthcare insurance as well down the line.
I only had a question about the GPD survey that's gonna be done, the second phase on the hillside. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I'm just looking at the cost of it, and is there any way of recouping that cost some way? Like through insurance or through somebody else helping us pick up that cost?
Well, it depends on there isn't a grant out there to do that, so it would depend on what the damage is, and I don't know the ability to, if it is in fact caused by the water department, by the leaks here, I don't know if we can sue another public entity. In other words, what I'm saying, that's a question to be asked somewhere down the road. If in fact it is that the water main that runs on 71st Street the cause of that, but before we do anything renovation-wise in the district, we need to know the stability of the building and to make sure where that water's coming from and what effect it's having on us. Because we don't think it's internal, it's not showing up in our water bills. So it's happening someplace before the water comes into our building.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the village ought to be part of a study like that.
Will absolutely be a part of this,
Looking at
because
down
they were the
here.
ones that encouraged me, have kind of pointed me in that direction, because the village is continually working with the water department, because the hillside project down there, that washout was due to leaks. Remember right after they paved 71st Street, that they had to dig up the base of 71st Street, that was a leak down there. So this main that runs down 71st Street feeds all the southern part of Cuyahoga County, and is put in the 1920s, I think they said. So, and I talked the story about the Grand Avenue ramp that leaked for literally 7 or 8 years.
Right.
Before it got to the point where somebody finally kind of dug it up and fixed it. So there was water continually running down that ramp. So,
I mean, it's just it's a big chunk of change, $31,000.
It's gonna be, I mean, to renovate and to prepare for it, I mean.
Yeah.
I know.
It's gonna be.
And these are questions that we have to have answered, but this is also, I already told Mayor Bocci that when we have this, that we'll invite him to the presentation so he can see, because we know that there's fluoride in that water, from the water samples that have been taken, at least the sewer, so that came back in that first test. They did a lot of, like sonic testing, what they could do. They're gonna have to do some boring to find out some additional questions. Underneath the bleachers is difficult because the bleachers are concrete, and we think we've got some bowing there, and so they've got a plan to kind of
take a look down in there and see what's happening there, so,
Time to redo those bleachers, make them safe.
so a lot involved in it.
Certainly.
If there's no further discussion, we can move to a vote then.
Mr. Souchaki?
Aye.
Mrs. Zetter?
Aye.
Ms. Prowse?
Aye.
Mrs. Schubert?
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins?
Aye, the motion passes 5-0. Mr. Evans, discussions, comments?
I've got nothing, I did not go down to BASA yesterday and today, so I don't have all the legal and
Legislative updates that I would've gotten down there, I'm sure when they get back, one of my friends will pass them along to me, but, with the way I've been fighting this sinus infection, I didn't think it was prudent for me to go spend 2 days in Columbus, and, so we just stuck around here, there's always plenty of work to do here, so, as I get some of those, updates, we'll forward those to you.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to agenda item 13, board business resolutions. There would be a motion, I guess we can do this under consent agenda. So 13A would be a motion to approve attendance at professional conferences as listed. And motion 13B would be motion to approve attendance for the following individuals at the Alliance of High Quality Education's Luncheon and Annual Meeting to be held on November 14th, 2022 in Columbus. That'd be Mr. Evans, Mr. Muccio, and the 5 board members. So, may I have a motion to approve the board's consent agenda items, please?
So moved.
Ms. Schubert moves.
Second.
Mr. Souchaki seconds. I don't have anything to add to this, so.
I do, so
Please.
I'm not gonna be going to Columbus, I'm not gonna be going to Capitol Conference, so, Mr. Muccio, and there should be enough time, right, to cancel like hotel and stuff? So if you could take me off the Alliance. I'm using I only get 3 personal days, I'm using them to go to London, my cousin's getting married, so. Gonna put family first.
Yeah.
The safety workshop is got some threat assessment, this is where we have to have our threat assessment team in place this year. I used some grant money, so, some outside grant money to have Chief Sturgill go with me. So the 2 of us will be attending that next week that's the one that was, closest by. And, actually, the Alliance Luncheon is at a different site this year. It's actually, they have a new room off of the Hilton that is supposed to be bigger than the old room that we were so jammed into, last time, but, I did read that so it will be up off the concourse from the convention center at OSBA, and it's supposed to be a pretty, I saw some pictures of it, it looks to be a pretty dynamic place, so I think Tony is excited about the turnout, because as you know, they turn people away every year for the luncheon, so.
Very good. If there's no other discussion or comments, we can move to a vote then, please.
Mrs. Schubert?
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki?
Aye.
Ms. Prowse?
Aye.
Mrs. Zetter?
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Agenda item 15, board policy and bylaws review. Or actually, I should, yeah, that's right. We're on the agenda item 14. No, I'm probably 15. Right,
You're right.
thanks. 15, policy and bylaws review. Mr. Young.
Fantastic. We have approximately 20 new policies this fall. We're gonna do half this month and half next month. This is just the first reading for the following policies. We're gonna lump the first set together, policy 1617, 3217, 4217, and 7217. I won't go into the different classifications of the numbers, but we're basically dealing with administration, professional staff, classified staff, and property with respect to weapons, okay? These policies, and they all mirror each other, so these policies have been revised to reflect changes required by recent legislative actions, including Senate Bill 215 and House Bill 99. Senate Bill 215 became effective June 13th of 2022 and authorized qualified individuals to carry certain weapons without a concealed carry license or permit. The law defines qualifying adult as a person who is 21 years or older, is not legally prohibited from possessing or receiving a firearm under specified federal or state law, and satisfied specified criteria necessary to obtain a concealed handgun license. Importantly, however, the law still requires an individual to have a concealed carry permit or be an active service member to lawfully carry a weapon onto school grounds and either remain in their vehicle with it or leave it in their locked vehicle. The word permitless in the policy, permitless carriers, are still not allowed to carry weapons into a school safety zone. A violation of this law remains a felony offense in Ohio. Language in the policies have been updated to reflect Senate Bill 215 changes, and a drafting note has been added to clarify current requirements. A little bit more on this one. House Bill 99 it permits a Board of Education and governing board of a non-public school to authorize individuals to have weapons in a school safety zone, provided that both of the following apply. Either the individual has successfully completed the new curriculum and training established under the bill, or the person has received a certificate of satisfactory completion of an approved basic peace officer training program, or is a law enforcement officer. The initial training for those who have not completed the peace officer training will be up to 24 hours in length, with an additional annual requalification training of up to 8 hours. School boards may require training beyond this amount and must pay all costs of the training. Training must be provided by the newly formed mobile training team, or alternatively be a training adopted by the Board of Education and approved by the newly formed Ohio School Safety and Crisis Center. Second piece is the board must notify the public through the regular channels of communication if they have authorized one or more individuals to carry weapons, and must also provide a current list of designated individuals to that Ohio School Safety and Crisis Center. This notice to the public is a public record, although other records pertaining to designated individuals are expressly exempt from the Ohio Public Records Act. So these revisions to the policies reflect current Ohio law. Options provided in these policies should be carefully considered, and choices selected should be included in revisions of these policies. And I think Mr. Evans will tell you, we have selected options that would not allow staff members to receive this training and carry weapons. We leave that to our law enforcement. If you want to talk more
If
about
you just
that.
see there's a question mark, I've got to call into John about some of the verbiage in B, bullet point B, because that doesn't sit well with me, and I want to know what exactly that's saying, so I've got to call into John to find out, get some further clarification on that specifically. Again, this board has already reinforced that we are not going to change our current policy of not allowing guns on the premises, with the exception of law enforcement and the other stipulations. So this doesn't, we have to have this policy in place because the law has passed. So we're not granting anybody permission, but this is one of those check boxes that we have to.
Does anyone come forward and want to do this?
No.
Want to bring
No.
weapons?
And the recommendations from the safety committee, all three of our police chiefs said no. They said that that's just a bad idea.
Right.
Okay. The rest of the policies I will quickly go over involve programs and our professional staff. Policy 2220, adoption of the course of study. This is a revised policy. This is reflective of Ohio Revised Code 3313.60. Basically, back in the old days, a school that had a curriculum had to be approved by an educational service center. That requirement no longer exists. Educational service centers are no longer in the business of writing curriculum. That is all in Ohio model curriculum through the Ohio Department of Education now. So all this policy does is it removes the requirement that your curriculum guides be approved and adopted by an ESC before you can adopt it. So the revised policy reflects current Ohio law, should be adopted to maintain current policies. Policy 2280, preschool programming. Actually, we did not have this policy. They're saying that it's revised, but we did not have this policy on record. It says in June of this year, the State Board of Education adopted several important changes to the definitions of 2 preschool classrooms under the state's governing regulations. The actions came about after school districts and other stakeholders voiced strong opposition to a prior version of the regulations that proved very difficult to implement. The regulatory changes modified definitions of a public preschool, general education classroom, and a preschool integrated classroom in a way that should provide more flexibility for public schools that offer preschool programs by modifying how many students with disabilities may be enrolled in each type of program. These definitions have been added in policy 2280. May be offered by districts operating preschool programs. Additional updates were added to the policy to align with current regulatory requirements. It says these revisions, which for us would be a new policy, reflect current provisions of Ohio Administrative Code and should be adopted. Policy 2413 is career advising. We did not have a career advising policy. It's revised for those school districts that had it, but this is new as well. And this reflects provisions in Senate Bill 135 effective back in July of 2022, which added several requirements to K through 12 career advising. The policy summarizes the district's obligation to provide career advising to an at-risk student after a student success plan has been developed, which aligns with the district's career planning and advising plan. The policy also includes additional information that must be provided to students, specifically about how costs of post-secondary education may be offset, as well as information about certain career fields that require industry credentialed requirements, certificates, and college degrees. Legal citations have also been updated. The policy reflects current Ohio laws, should be adopted to maintain accurate policies. This is in line with the graduation plans we're required to develop for all students starting in 9th grade. This allows us to take some of this pre-planning down to end of 6th grade, starting in 7th grade. I mean, students can take college credit plus if they qualify, starting as 7th graders in Ohio by law. So it makes sense to start advising them on their career or college or military path a little bit earlier. And this is great because Mrs. Hettinger's office is right there. She's our career specialist from the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, and she already works extensively with our high school students and starting to work with our middle school students as well. So this fits really nicely for us. Policy 2430 and 2431 go together. They are revised policies. 2430 is the district-sponsored clubs and activities, and 2431 is the interscholastic athletics. Both policies reflect Senate Bill 131 that prohibits districts as well as non-public schools and interscholastic conference governing bodies from adopting any type of rule that limits a student from wearing religious apparel while participating in an extracurricular activity unless the apparel poses a danger to students or others. And even if there is some safety risk involved, a school district must offer all reasonable accommodations, in quotes, to allow students to participate. All right, it says these revised policies reflect current Ohio law and should be adopted to maintain accurate policies. All right, last one, I think. Is that correct? 3120.08. Am I there?
Yep.
I don't have it in front of me, so I think that's good. This is employment of personnel for co-curricular and extracurricular activities, a revised policy for us. This policy has been updated in order to clarify that a non-teaching staff member who does not have an active teaching license must obtain a pupil activity permit to serve as a paid coach or advisor through a pupil service supplemental contract, regardless of whether the extracurricular program involves athletics, physical activity, or health and safety risks. Licensure requirements under revised code 3319.303 and accompanying regulations are different for individuals who hold a valid teaching license. These licenses need only to be obtained through a pupil activity permit when they oversee athletics, other physical activities, or activities that may present a health or safety risk. All right, so this revised policy reflects current Ohio law and should be adopted to maintain accurate policies. You know, this could be somebody who's sponsoring a musical, needs that pupil activity permit because there's going to be the movement. We're going to be with students after school. We need to have some type of certification aligned with that.
Where does this pupil activity permit come from?
A pupil activity permit is, all of our coaches, volunteers and actual coaches take that through, how was that through the OHSAA?
Yes,
or
OHSAA.
Yeah, OHSAA. Every single person that's ever coached in the last 10 years has had a pupil activity permit. They're familiar with it. It's people who, again, people who are maybe working with a musical or a play. They're not used to getting a pupil activity permit. They may not be a teacher, they may not be a coach. If they're a teacher, they're fine. They don't need a pupil activity permit because they have a license. But if they're somebody from the community or somebody who doesn't coach that's doing that, they would need a pupil activity permit also. And I believe that's it. That's the first reading. Second reading will be for consideration in 2 weeks, and then a month from now, we'll roll out the last policies. And Tom says policies will change again by January, so.
We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 16, board discussion comments. Board members have anything for discussion tonight?
I can report on the last Career Center meeting. At the last Career Center meeting, we had a building and grounds presentation on the rolling 5-year facility plan. What I mean by rolling, it's out, 2 years ago, we had a 5-year plan. Now then last year we had a new one, now we have another new one, and each of them goes out 5 years as they continue to work on it. Probably the biggest news is that everything got a whole lot more expensive between the time we approved last year's expenditures and we actually did the work this past summer. And they expect it to get more expensive again next year. Parts costs, I forget the exact numbers, are up like 50% in some areas, and personnel costs are up like 30%. So it's getting much more expensive. The last year's 5-year plan would have been without any deficit spending. The current one will probably show deficit spending in order to accomplish it. Not a significant concern, because when you're finished with all the work, then you won't have the expenses anymore. There's no permanent improvement levy, it's all coming out of the general fund. So what it means is we will not be building up the general fund quite as much as we had hoped over the next few years. Just very briefly, this past year, we spent $1.2 million on asphalt and the entrance redesign. The original main entrance was in very poor condition. It had a lot of drainage issues, gutter problems, sewer issues, concrete issues. It all got redone. I'm sorry, that's the current main entrance. The original main entrance was just up front. It's 45 years old and looked every bit of 45 years old. So it has been redone. The steps have been completely removed. Now it's a ramp all the way down. Used to have a handicap ramp and steps. New landscaping, a new flagpole, and the new driveway, which was a huge expense. The whole driveway, you could see it on the edges. It was collapsing. Along the edges, the curbs were falling apart. I don't know how long it's been since that was done, but, so we have a new driveway, and if you do go down there, the speed bumps are notorious. They are terrible. Be very careful.
How fast did you go over them, Gary?
I hit the first one at about 20. I hit the next two at 10. The speed limit is 15.
I'll tell you, my son was in a car accident in the parking lot his first year at CVCC with other Cuyahoga Heights kids, so it's good to speed bump that, because it is,
Yes.
it's windy and long.
Yeah, and when students would leave, they'd get on that main
Yeah,
drive.
oh, yeah.
And the main
That's-
drive is
that's-
like, over 1,000 feet, so that's a good long drive, and they'd
16 and
goose it.
17-year-olds.
Not anymore. So everybody's complaining about the speed bumps. He admitted, he said they're sharper than I thought they would be. And they really are. They're very narrow and a good height, so. There was $130,000 in a remodeling project for the adult education area, $31,000 to put new flooring and do some wall repairs in the nursing area. Machine technology department, $21,000 for electrical, plumbing, and a new wall. You need plumbing for the air hoses and gas lines that are used in that area. And then computer networking got new carpeting and new electrical for about $26,500. So $1.4 million this past year. I can give you a brief overview of the next 5 years. I don't want to spend hours on this, of course, but I'll give you a brief overview on what's planned for the next years. Oh, I have pictures if anybody wants to see it, the new entrance to the two buildings. I got pictures of the roof work that was done. I forgot all of this was in here. Okay, where's 23? I just went for 24. I missed 23. Too many pages. Sorry about that. 23, we have some interior projects which are going to include relamping, major carpet replacement, and then more roof units. So roof 1 and 5 are the two worst roofs for leakage, so they're the ones that they're starting with. When you're going to do a roof, There's no sense in not doing the HVAC, because if you don't, then you're gonna have to cut a hole in your new roof when you put in the HVAC systems. So those are being upgraded, even though they're, you know, they're, like some of the stuff we have around here, it's hard to get parts. You know, they're close to or at or beyond end of life, so that'll be done too. More glass block. Glass block is, I didn't realize this, does not hold up well over the years, just like a window, doesn't hold up well. And then glass block, you've got more problems because you got all those seams. So you got more places where water and air can leak in.
There's a lot of it. in
And
the
there's a lot,
building,
well,
too.
the whole building is built with glass block all the way around on the upper level. And then, of course, you can't even tell in half of the places because they put up false ceilings over the years, and you can't even see the light coming in, so. The ones that have ceilings on them don't get replaced with windows, they get replaced with steel or metal sheathing. And then where the glass block is still visible, they're getting new pane glass windows in those areas, so. Almost $3 million for next year. All of that gets done during the summer, of course, which is a real challenge. In fiscal year '24, there's a little bit of interior work, less than $100,000, but replacing roof level 4 and the roof level 2 HVAC units, which they're getting ahead before they do the rest of that roof. They're doing the HVAC, and then the next year they'll do the roof, I think is the way they're doing that. I don't know why. Probably because parts availability projected and that kind of stuff. More glass block removal, another $2 million in fiscal year '24. Fiscal year '25 is almost $2 million, 1.99. Roof 5, HVAC, it just says HVAC here, which is strange because it doesn't say, it replaced the roof. Replaced roof level 3 and roof 5 HVAC. I'm not sure why it all gets broken up like that, but a lot of people working in that GPD is a big part of what goes on at the Career Center. Fiscal year '26, another $2.1 million, almost $2.2 million. And these are inflated figures assuming the growth, right? These numbers, actually, the 5-year plan went up $9 million because of increased expenses for supplies.
We have to have hope that it's gonna go back down, everybody.
Yeah, that would be nice, because we have a few things to do around here, too. And then finally, in fiscal year '27, we're down $1.1 million for some indoor work and outdoor light poles, which are probably pretty significant, and a new generator to support the IT stuff. And then they're gonna redo the parking lot, so those are the big ones in fiscal year '27. And I'm sure once we get there, there will be more things on a rolling 5-year plan, because, you gotta keep the place up, and we got the same issues here, as we well know, so. Anyhow, that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the update. Are there any other comments or updates from board members?
I can give the legislative platform
Please.
updates if you want. So there's just a few proposed changes to the OSBA legislative platform for the November meeting I was gonna share. There are some other ones, if you're really curious, they're mostly small. I only pulled the ones that I thought were the most relevant. So on the, oh God, sorry, this is really hard to see. On policies around, drug use, they are gonna oppose legislation around, medical marijuana, just for or recreational marijuana, I should say. Oppose any legislation that covers that issue, just for awareness. There is some language around the report card. So it talks about, I think it's kind of vague, but it says moves toward a varied system of assessments that allows students to demonstrate academic competency and mastery in ways beyond standardized tests. I think it's some of kind of what you were saying of like, it's not just about the tests, right? It's kind of like about the fuller picture of like achievement. So there's that. There is opposition to legislation about board member terms, and so they're opposed to legislation that or they're proposing that they would be opposed to legislation that reduces the term length of a elected Board of Education member to anything less than 4 years. Imposes limits on the number of terms that a local community can decide who will serve on its Board of Education. It opposes moving elections from nonpartisan to partisan, and then opposes any legislation that creates or provides primaries for local school board candidates. I think that's probably a response. There's some legislation, I think, that is proposing to do those things, and I guess it's a response to that. And then there's a new section, hopefully I don't zoom out on this, on the parental right to know. So it just kind of covers their position on some of those issues. It's kind of long. It says the parental right to know all aspects of students and learning, school governance, finance, and personnel is essential to a thorough and efficient system of public education. It talks about an effective partnership and involvement in the education of their children. The OSBA continues to support state and federal parental right to know laws that continue to foster the principles set forth by the Ohio State Board of Education. And then the position would be OSBA opposes legislation that restricts the rights of parents and or guardians. So kind of high level, but those are the big ones.
Okay.
Any questions or?
I don't have any. I guess we have one more meeting before the Capitol Conference, so if people have concerns or have a chance to review that platform, feel free to, you're the delegate, so we could reach out to you and express any concerns. And as I understand it, you have a right during the meeting to raise any objections or propose modifications. Thank you for that summary.
Yep.
Any other comments or updates from board members tonight? Okay, then we can move on to agenda item 17, possible future agenda items. I don't, let's submit any, otherwise we'll move on to 18. It should be noted the Board of Education members received their agendas several days prior to the actual meeting, thus they've had considerable opportunity to study and ask questions, etc. Upcoming regular meetings for October 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m., a work session on November 2nd, 2022 at 6 p.m., and a regular meeting at November 16th, 2022 at 7 p.m. With that, I hereby move that the board adjourn to executive session pursuant to ORC Section 121.22G1 and 121.22G3 for the purpose of considering the evaluation, employment, and/or compensation of employees and/or officials of the school district, and to consult with the legal counsels of the district concerning disputes involving the school district. So I'll make that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Schukert seconds. We can move to a roll call vote.
Mr. Dobbins?
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert?
Aye.
Ms. Prowse?
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki?
Aye.
Mrs. Zetter?
The motion passes 5-0. It's 8:13, and we are now in executive session.
Are we staying in here?
Yeah.